life of a service member is not easy, and doing the work helps us be a better version of ourselves and be able to expose some of that stuff that we're holding on to that we can't let go.
Welcome to the Crucible Project podcast. The Crucible Project is a nonprofit organization committed to creating a world of men and women who live with integrity, grace, and courage, helping them to fulfill their God-given purpose. This podcast will discuss important and sometimes difficult topics while delivering practical life applications with men and women who are currently practicing this work. We are igniting Christ-like change in men and women through experiences of radical honesty and grace.
Well, hi, I'm Martin Brooker. I'm one of the Crucible Project podcast hosts, and I'm here with Armando Batista this morning. I'm saying this morning because I'm in Australia and he's in the United States, and we got Veterans Day coming up, and it just thought that we should get together and have a chat, particularly around Crucible Project and also as veterans as well. So, Armando, welcome to the podcast. You're not a stranger to the podcast; you're also a host as well.
Yes, sir. Yeah, definitely. It's been a journey, so it's been fun.
Yeah. Well, it's great to finally meet you. Heard lots about you, but for the people that are listening, could you give us like that Armando Batista story? What's that 5-minute version of where you came from and how you ended up here?
My name is Armando. I'm originally from Miami, Florida, a city called Hialeah, Florida. So I'm born to Cuban parents. Both my parents were born in Cuba. I met my wife as a high school sweetheart back in high school, and her parents are both Cuban as well, so immigrant families. And then I decided to do something with my life and get away from Miami and the partying and joined the Air Force. I joined the Air Force, and I've served since. It's been a journey in that, just leaving Florida, leaving Miami, and then going across the U.S. in multiple locations. But yeah, that's a little synopsis about me and who I am.
Yeah. How many years have you been serving in the United States Air Force?
16 years.
Yeah,
just
wow.
about. Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you for your service.
You as well.
Yeah. How did you end up coming to the Crucible Project and your first weekend?
Yeah, so back, I think like 2018, around time frame, our lead pastor, Carl Cool from Mosaic Church, he had gone on a Crucible weekend and came back and invited his elder team to go. And he had his board of overseers, as they call it. He said, hey, I went on this weekend. I want you to experience it. So he invited them to go. And one of my best friends, Brian Guy, he was going to go. And I've been wanting to go because I heard about the work. I just heard about what it can do and what can help out and expose. So when we figured out a right date and time, we decided to go. So we went ahead and we went in November 2019. But funny story behind that. So the month prior to me going, I had to have ankle surgery. We were at the church's retreat and I rolled my ankle and had to have ankle surgery. So I showed up on my initial weekend on an e-scooter, not being able to be mobile. So that was challenging in itself, going on a Crucible weekend and being on an e-scooter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one way to do it.
Yeah.
The catalyst for attending, so there was, I guess, leadership from your church. And did you have expectations about what it's going to be like?
I had no idea what it was going to be like. All I knew was I wanted to go on the weekend. I wanted to be a better husband, a better father, and a better leader.
Yeah.
In that order.
Yeah.
And that's really all I was seeking. And I had no idea what I was walking into. And was just like, I'm going. I just want those three things.
Yeah. The weekend is it's a special experience, isn't it, for people?
It definitely is. And even through the injury and the knee scooter, God used those moments to teach me something in that.
Yeah. Wow. What did you learn that God helped create that moment for you?
Yeah. So specifically for the knee scooter part, we're in a terrain that's not as leveled. And sometimes I needed to learn to just let other men pick me up and literally physically help me up and help me get through from one point to the next. And sometimes I needed to let them take the steering wheel while I had others supporting me. So just teach me that sometimes I need to learn to let go and let others take the wheel. And sometimes I need others to just pick me up and be okay with them picking me up.
Yeah. It's tough, isn't it, sometimes to let go?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Us service members, we like to have control. I like to have control. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I've had the same experience, and I joined our Australian Navy at the age of 15. Yeah, like I'm a
wow,
boy,
yeah,
and I grew up pretty quickly. And I think it's certainly an environment where you're expected to get it right pretty much all the time. You know, like
yeah,
that famous saying, "Failure is not an option here." And so there's our environment. It's not the only environment, but our environment in the military can sometimes give us sort of that sense that the only way to be successful is to get it right all the time, or to be in control to make sure we get it right all the time.
yep, I
Yeah,
agree.
you're letting go, and that weekend experience. What did you get for yourself as a result of the weekend?
So my initial weekend, what I got for myself was a sense of peace, a sense of understanding was
Mm,
mostly what I got was why do I show up the way that I do and why do I act the way that I act?
mm,
And uncovering some of those deep suppressed childhood wounds that I've had where one of them being I'm a person that likes to go out there and bust my tail and do the best that I can. And even as a kid, I would do great at sports and do good in different places, and also that I can get a trophy so that one day maybe I see my dad in the crowd.
mm.
And it's not bad to want to work hard and perform and like get the trophies and stuff like that, but when that becomes your my driving force, that could be an
Mm,
issue. Um,
mm.
and it's because there's a wound there where my father was absent because he came from Cuba and he only went to school to the second grade. So I can't hate him for that because what he did coming from Cuba, coming to with nothing here, led me to have the life that I have.
Mm.
But at the same time, that's a wound that I wanted my dad to be present, and my dad was not present for me. So having
Yeah,
that absent father and just, hey, I got this trophy and I'm looking at the crowd and everybody's parents are there and my mom is there, but where's my dad?
yeah,
And always
yeah,
that feeling of wanting my dad to be there.
yeah. It's such an important relationship, the ones that we have with our parents. It's where we learn so much, isn't it? And they do the best that they can. And so, yeah, but sometimes that brings about challenges, and actually finding ways in which not to, I guess, put them down about it, but also just be, for come from a place of love and grace that, like, they did the best they can, and actually my role is actually to perhaps do the work to help me to do the best that I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I learned to own some stuff as well.
Yeah.
That was another big takeaway is truly owning my mistakes and my choices
Mm,
and their consequences.
yeah.
Coming to realization and just learning to own those parts of me and not blaming anything else, but at the
Mm,
same time having an understanding of what drove me to make the mistakes that I did
yeah.
and being able to come from a vulnerable place and say, hey, I am sorry to my wife for
Mm,
doing XYZ.
yeah.
And here's something I learned about myself that I didn't realize I was carrying that led me to get to this stage.
Mm,
So that was something that happened between my wife and I. And on my Crucible weekend, I just wrote a letter, just raw, authentic in the moment. And I didn't read it until I got back. And I read her that letter and she broke down. She was like, wow, like, what happened here? Like, you come back from a weekend and, like, there's a shift.
yeah.
And honestly, she told me, she's like, hey, I was waiting till like 2 or 3 weeks passed, and I was waiting for, hey, when's the old Armando coming back? And
Mm,
then after months of continuing to work, she's just like, whoa, I guess there is some change here. I guess there is some ownership and some recognition of things.
yeah.
So
It's important, isn't it, to having done the weekend to continue to do the work, because it's, it's like it's not fairy dust. It's not a dropper here. We actually need to continue to do the work. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and that's 100%. I've done groups, I've done the 2 year program, and I've done plenty of staffings, and every single weekend that I staff is as if not more impactful than my
Yeah.
original weekend.
Yeah. Did you have children at the time which you did the weekend?
Yeah, so I have at the time I had two children.
Mm-hmm.
I have three boys, but at that time I
Yeah.
did have two children,
Yeah.
and I also wrote them a letter, and I
Okay.
expressed to them like, "Hey, because of some of my choices, I've caused your mother to be angry at
Mm.
me for my choices, my poor choices." And I was able to express that to them too, and I won't forget because I'm sitting on the couch because I'm on an e-scooter, and I'm talking to them, and then one goes around the kitchen and just sits down and starts crying, and it
Mm.
gets real emotional, and then I called them back over, and we sat down and talked more and just further processed it and stuff like that, and it taught me to love my little boy like I've never done before.
Yeah. Wow.
I was able to love on my son and be able to speak to him and help him understand like, hey, like I need to own stuff and it's okay to make mistakes, and
Mm.
we have to own our mistakes.
Yes.
And I had to learn how to love myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a big lesson. I had a similar experience of my weekend, and the weekend. What I got for the weekend was that thinking that actually, if God's love is infinite, why can I not just love myself just a little bit like our Heavenly Father does?
Yeah.
And being able to sit in that and actually be and to feel that love. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm feeling the emotion there of being able to have that conversation with your sons. Had a similar conversation with my adult daughters. I think we probably did our weekends at different ages and stages in life, but I've got children and grandchildren, and being able to have that conversation with my adult daughters that in a separated marriage situation over many years, it's been powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah, it's been really good. And then over time, I was able to have conversation with my dad about unfinished business and just things that
Mm.
I've been holding on to, and just tell him like, hey, because of this is how I've operated, and these are some of the woundings that I have, but be able to come up in a way that it's not an attack, but just in a way to have a deep conversation and understand his story.
Yeah.
And after some time, he actually went on a Spanish weekend,
Oh wow.
and I got to staff his
Oh.
weekend. And that was so impactful for me to help understand what are his wounds and why he
Mm-hmm.
shows up the way that he does,
Yeah.
and come to a realization of full circle, this is why this pattern has occurred in my life, and
Mm.
how it's a generational thing that's come from him and his wounds, and his story, and just learning more about his story through the
Yeah.
work has been truly
Yeah.
phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah. I was speaking to somebody just this last weekend talking about intergenerational. I was going to say trauma, but actually what gets passed on, not necessarily trauma, because good things get passed on in generational as well. But my sense is that there's an opportunity to break the cycle sometimes of stuff. And wow, I just honor you and your father for doing the work.
Yeah.
That's a great story. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely is, and you're right. Like that, those generational curses, they follow you until something breaks and you do something different.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think doing the work and facing the fire, like
Mm.
Crucible says, right? Face the fire, do the work,
Yeah.
definitely can break those chains.
Yeah. The other thing I heard in relation to this is actually our role as parents is actually to actually prepare out the next generation to be not only their best selves but also the best parents that they can be as well. And there's biblical principles around that as well. But like that's powerful that you now have two generations that then can the impact. Imagine the impact of on your boys as they grow up and do their work.
Yeah, and I'll say this: I'm not perfect, and I'll never will be
Mm.
perfect.
Yeah.
But my goal is to minimize the damage that I do to my kids,
Yeah.
because no matter how perfect we can be or how great we can be, we're still
Mm.
going to wound our children. We
Yes.
can do whatever we can, but we can minimize the wounding that we give them,
Yeah.
because I do know that some get more severe wounds, but I know that I'm going to wound them. So
Mm.
I need to make sure that I'm not wounding them in a way that's traumatic to a certain extent that gets it real bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It also, I think, what I've got from being in this community and going to a weekend and continuing to be part of the community through other groups that are involved with it is that actually I make better choices today in how I respond to things when they don't go well, and to go to that point about not wanting to damage your kids. I wish I'd done that earlier, but you know what? I actually get a chance to go back and sort that out, and also get a chance to be part of the village that raises my grandchildren as well.
That's great.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, like, this work has helped me a ton, especially connecting with other service members.
Yeah.
Um, just being able to go deep with them and ask them those tough questions. And it's real easy when you have a bad troop to just beat them up, right? And just like get them kicked out. And
Yeah.
hey, you're not good, and like it's always bad. It's always easy to point the finger, right? And it's always easy to come down on people. But to me, what defines a great leader is someone that can sit down and turn your worst individual to your best individual. And it
Yeah.
comes down to knowing their stories.
Mm.
And really, this work has helped me to understand that, hey, someone doesn't show up to work late. Like there's something behind there. There's
Yeah.
something going on. There might be some issue going on. So it's like, hey, let's break it down. Hey, what's going on in your life? And let's talk through that and trying to open that up so that people can be okay with, hey, I messed up, but here's what's going on and here's what's deeper inside. And it's
Yeah.
been really good to be able to just have those deep conversations and use the Crucible questions and the Crucible knowledge that I've gained to be able to pour into others and help them expose some of that deep hurt they have going on.
Yeah. Yeah. A stereotype Hollywood version of the military and leadership looks like somebody, charging over the precipice, or, turning a ship hard and firing weapons and torpedoes, or fighter planes dueling together. And so vulnerability as a leader is actually something that from the outside doesn't look like it's a natural thing to do. How has Crucible and your own ability to be vulnerable turned up in your workplace now as a military leader?
Yeah, so what I'll tell you is before I did my work, it wasn't okay to be vulnerable. So I'm a Cuban. I'm from Miami, right? Hispanic. The way I was raised was like, hey, you can't be scared, you can't be sad, and you can't share your weaknesses. If you share your weaknesses, then someone's gonna take advantage of it, or you're not a good boy, or you're not good enough. You're not good enough, man. So
Yeah.
learning about that, being okay with being vulnerable and sharing that has helped tremendously. Where I can share my faults, I can share my hurt, I can share the fact that I've had to get mental health counseling myself, and that they're not alone. And I think what I see is when I tell that to others and I'm able to share some of my story, and they see, hey, I'm not alone in this, I think it opens up. And I've had a lot of people open up to me with some deep stuff, from suicide ideations to just depression to many things going on in their lives. And it's just getting to know their story and why they feel the way they do, and why they've been so impacted, and why they thinking these thoughts or thinking to act this way or showing up this way. It's been really transformational to just open up that vulnerability, because it's not normal in the service, right?
Yeah.
It should be normal, but it's the upbringings that we have. And I don't blame it on the service, but I blame it on us as humans.
Yes.
Many cultures, it's not safe to be vulnerable.
Yeah. 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 There are plenty corporate in organizations I know, plenty of churches actually I know as well that that's not okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I think we live in a world where people want to stay at the surface level. And I'm at the stage that after this work and just looking at life, I'm like, hey, I don't want to stay at the surface level. We're gonna go deep, and if we're not gonna go deep, then all right, you're not worth talking to. I'm gonna move on, and I'm gonna find someone else, because I don't need those service relationships. Like, let's be real, let's be open, let's be honest, and let's not
Yeah.
hide. We
Yeah.
hide way too much in this world, and people don't open up. And I think if we all just open up, it would be such a huge impact, because
Yeah.
every leader, every person has a story, whether good or bad. And if we were
Yes.
just share that, man, this world can change so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
To me, vulnerability is key to change of the world.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where we trust each other more. You know,
Yeah.
when I hear another man or even a woman share what's really going on for them because they're prepared to do that, I trust them more.
Yeah. Same here.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll
Yeah.
tell you, like, with this organization, so I moved from Maryland to here. And the first thing I did was post on our social media saying, hey, is there any man that's been to Crucible that lives in my area? And that man, there was a man that said yes. His name is Jeff. And I met with him like first week being here. And it
Mm.
was like, I've known this guy for 15 years and I just met him because we've
Yes.
done the work and we're able to start at a deep level and talk about our experience. And it's
Yeah.
just been phenomenal to have
Mm.
that man here and to have the start of the community here, to be able to have that
Yeah.
realness and that openness,
Yeah.
because I need that in my life.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
The nature of our service, serving our countries in our respective militaries, is often about being away from family and doing deployments. And you know, you in your 16 years, mine in my over 30 years, we've definitely had those deployments. How has what you've learned from Crucible helped you get through that time when you're away from your family for long periods of time?
Yeah, I would tell you, for me, it's about being intentional. It's
Mm.
about making the time for my family, making the time to like connect with them and do purposeful connection, not just, hey, I'm call for like 5 minutes and then go away.
Mm.
But it's like, no, I need to set a time block and do a virtual call and speak to my kids, speak to my wife, and stay
Mm.
present. Because it's very
Mm.
easy to be like, hey, you know what? I'm out here deployed or TDY. Like, hey, babe, you got this. I'm just going to let it be. I'll call you here and there. But no, like, she needs to hear from me. They need to hear from me. I
Yeah.
need to still be present and not just check out, because it's very easy to just check out and focus on the mission, because we all have a
Mm.
mission to do and get so
Yeah.
caught up in the mission that we can forget about the main mission back home.
Yeah. Yeah, I really value that. And what comes to mind when you were talking then is that is what kind of man do our spouses or wives need us to be in this situation where we're deployed? You know, like what are your thoughts around that? What kind of man does your wife need you to be, like 24/7 in reality? It doesn't matter whether you're deployed or at home.
Yeah, I think for me, what it comes up, it's a supportive
Mm.
man,
Yeah,
where I'm listening, I'm supporting and encouraging,
yeah,
and lifting her up, right? Building her confidence, picking her up instead of tearing her down.
mm.
Because it's very easy to tear each other down, but when we pick each other up, it just there's a switch that just clicks and that connection is there. And over time, like, my wife has gone and done the work, so we're able to talk about those things and process things. And I'm able to hear, sometimes I say something and I hear a reaction. I'm like, hold on, time out. Like, what did you hear me say? And then we process that, because sometimes I might say something, but she interprets it a different way. And I'm like,
Mm.
hold on, that's not what I meant. Like, I'm asking you this. I didn't mean for you to hear this or this or this. So
Mm.
let's talk about that. And
Yeah,
let's break that down so that she knows that, hey, like, I'm not thinking bad of you. It's just, hey, this is just something I'm thinking.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's been certainly the benefit. My wife and I have also both done initial weekends, and it actually gives you new language in which to have better communications in your family, recognizing that it's not all a bed of roses in life, whether you're married or not. So we started this conversation where you're saying the church, it was the church's leadership invitation to go and do the weekend. What have you got out of Crucible and that community that you're able to bring back to your church?
Yeah. So in Maryland, we went on the weekend, right? And then myself and a few other men actually started the Crucible Project over in the Mid Atlantic region, is what we call it, over in the Maryland DMV, so Maryland, DC, Virginia area. We
Yeah.
created the Crucible Project there and brought the work there with the help of Pete Outridge, Brian Smith, and a few men from the Northeast. We brought it down. And what that's been able to do, it's been able to help a lot of men
Mm.
touch parts of themselves that they have not seen. It's helped us have deep relationship, deep community, authentic community, where men are real and raw and honest and authentic. It's been really transformational. And then coming here to San Antonio, I'm starting to use it here, where I'm able to connect with men. I'm able to help them see how there's things going on deeper. Like one thing, it's about like triggers. You say that you're going to be somewhere, or someone tells you, hey, I'm going to be there at 9 o'clock. And then they show up at 10 o'clock, right? And that person's now extremely pissed off. And they're all the way like at 100, when in reality, for someone being late, you probably should be at like a 10. So what's going on deeper inside that has you so triggered? And helping people process that and saying, hey, like, why are you so upset? What's going on here? And does the energy match the offense? And then being able to break that up and talk about like, hey, what's going on, and what's this a reminder of? What's this a trigger of? So it's been really good to just use those tools and just be able to connect with people and help them see what's going on deeper inside.
Yeah. So we're getting together, particularly around the fact that it's sort of Veterans Day on the 11th of November, and this podcast should be out around that time. It's also known as Remembrance Day in other countries. What would you say to the veterans that are perhaps thinking about going to a weekend or are looking for something that can actually help deal with some of those challenges from operational service and service life?
Yeah, so what I'll say is I've seen many men from different branches come to a weekend, and it's been truly transformational for them. A lot of them are carrying shame or carrying hurt or fear around what they've done or what they've experienced or what they've been exposed to. Folks with PTSD, just folks with anger, resentment, and being able to walk them through the work has been truly inspiring. I've seen men just feel so much lighter and so free after doing the work and just being able to finally talk about what it is that they've been holding on to inside, from men dealing with wounds and battles from war to even just things in home station in the stateside. Doesn't necessarily mean that just because you were deployed, you can have PTSD, but it could also happen to people home station. There's traumatic events that can happen anywhere. Life of a service member is not easy, and doing the work helps us be a better version of ourselves and be able to expose some of that stuff that we're holding on to that we can't let go.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. It's my want that more and more people understand what this community is about, and that there is something for each man or woman to gain for themselves, whatever that challenge or issue is. Bringing that to the weekend, my experience can be a real breakthrough to find a different path. We all get pretty tired of that loop of activity or that feeling like we keep going around and ending up in the same spot. But the Crucible project for me was definitely a way to get off that merry-go-round.
Yeah. And I would say I would challenge those that are thinking about going, if they're ready to get some freedom, if they're ready to just let go of things, then just come on the weekend. You're not going to know what's going to happen. And it's hard for us as service members to do that. But if you're there thinking, hey, it's time for me to go and get some healing, it's time for me to go and let go, it's time for me to just let it out, then sounds like you need to sign up for a weekend and get to a Crucible weekend wherever you are.
Yeah. Armando, it's been so wonderful to connect with you and to spend this time together. I feel like, again, we know each other better as brothers across the distance between the United States and Australia, but it's been an absolute pleasure. And I hope that we get a chance to meet someday in person. I'm certainly traveling to the US next year. And of course, you're always welcome to come to staff a weekend in Australia if you'd like to do that.
Yes, sir. That'd be great. And it's been fantastic to get to know you and just to be able to just talk about this and just the impacts that it may have on folks. So I appreciate you doing this and connecting with me on this.
Yeah. All right. God bless you, brother. Go well.
You too, brother. Yes, sir.
For more information about our weekends, please go to thecrucibleproject.org. Or if you're ready to get started on your transformational journey right now, you can connect with one of our Crucible certified coaches for a free 30-minute session at thecrucibleproject.org/coaching. That's thecrucibleproject.org/coaching. If you like what you heard, connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Rate and review wherever you're listening, and don't forget to subscribe on your preferred podcast platform. Thank you for listening.